Neil, good afternoon. Tell us how this week has been after the last week where you only had a couple of days. You saw the game the weekend. What's been the focus this week?
Well, on a personal level, I've slept about 3 hours all week. There's so many things on my mind at the moment that always kicks in just as you're about to go to sleep. It's been a little bit of reflection on the first game. Obviously, there's a lot of emotion around it. Like we all know, the heat was unbearable last week. So we've just slowly but surely trying to change a few things around the training ground that I didn't do in the first 2 days. Trying to make plans to improve the training ground, which is a little bit more long term. And then I've had a meeting with Matt and David Stockdale and Darren Kelly. We've looked at the squad, looked at the balance of it and stuff like that. So you're just sort of doing all of that background stuff whilst at the same vein on the pitch, trying to do the stuff on the pitch. Tuesday was a double session, did a lot of fitness work Tuesday afternoon. So the boys were still feeling it on Thursday. Tapered it down and tried to get the messages across to hopefully put in a performance tomorrow. So it's twofold.
And when you look back on the performance against Bournemouth, more positives than negatives, I presume?
A little bit of both. I thought there were spells that were quite pleasing on the eye. I thought there was some really, really bad stuff in there that was schoolboy-like, and it wasn't good enough. And then I thought there was a little bit of character in there, when the boys came in for their drinks break, 60 odd minutes in, and they just equalised. I think at that point, if you'd have asked me which team was most likely to go and win that game, I would have said Boreham Wood. But I sort of said to the boys there, you don't fold, you don't feel sorry for yourself, you go again. And I did think we responded. I thought the subs brought an energy, and I thought we responded, and I thought we could have possibly gone and nicked it in the end, and they showed a little bit of character. So there's a bit of everything, but compared to what I've been used to over the last 3 or 4 years, it's a long way to go.
You talked about during the week meeting with Matt, meeting with David Stockdale, Darren Kelly. Are you able to tell us how that relationship between all of you is going to work and who is going to be actually in charge of what things?
Well, Matt's going to be in charge because he's the boss. I think we've got to become a team off the pitch. Obviously, Darren's got good football experience. He's worked very, very well in that respect, and he'll take a lot of the pressure away from me. David is really keen to learn and to be that bridge between the football and the ball, but he wants to learn along the way. My knowledge of budgets and wage structures and dealing with agents and stuff like that, I think will be invaluable going forward, to make sure we get the right players. But there's a short term, we're going to need to plug some holes, and we're going to need to strengthen and try and, I know it sounds strange with a 30-odd man squad, but we're going to need to balance the squad up over the course of the coming weeks, because otherwise it's going to be a long winter. And then there's the long term of what we're trying to put in place to make sure that players that come to this club have gone through a rigorous recruitment data, live scale analysis, so that we are really starting to take this club forward.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think last week there was a clear differentiation between those players that were involved in the matchday squad and the ones that weren't, that we didn't see them hanging around the tunnel, we didn't see them at the ground very early. I don't know if that's going to carry on. And for away trips then, in the past, the last start of the season, virtually every player has been travelling to all the away games. It does seem as though there could be too much outside influence then. Yeah. Is that something that you're going to try and cut down on and maybe just getting control of?
Of course it has to. You can't have, if we've got 32, 34 man squad, you can't have them all hanging around changing room, because there's too many bodies there, and the tunnel area needs to be kept nice and clean and sharp on a match day. You're there to perform, the players are there to perform. They know that any injured lads up in the stand watching are supporting them. We said you don't need to be in and around us to let us know you're supporting us. It's nicer for them, because the players who aren't in the squad, whether they're coming back from injuries or whatnot, they'd have either done extra work on a Friday, they will have a gym session on a Saturday, but that will be put in line with them coming to the game, so they won't be expected to go to the gym at 9 o'clock in the morning, hang around all day. They might have a 12 o'clock gym session so that they can go and get some food, come across to the game. But then we're not asking them to be at the game an hour and a half standing around. We're asking them to be at the ground half hour before kick-off, support your teammates. You can come into the dressing room 20 minutes after the game's finished, go and see your teammates, but it keeps everything else where it's just the focus is on the 16.
And you talked about players coming and going. Are you near that already then, highlighting some areas and saying we need players here and these are the players that I'm happy to let leave either temporary or permanently?
Well, that in this first week, 10 days, that has got to be my job. You know, my job's to put a team out on the pitch, watch training, analyse players, see where they would fit into any different systems I play, and, you know, are they good enough to? Is what we've got here good enough? Do we need extra? I think there's imbalances. You know, like I said before, at the moment we've kind of got 2 real main first team centre halves and 2 main first team centre forwards. We're going Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday. Them same players are going to have to play every game until they get injured. That, you know, and if on this Saturday we've got 2 strikers playing, I'm not saying we are, but if we had 2 strikers playing and both of them run themselves into the ground 65 minutes into the game, I've got nothing to bring on to play instead of them. The season I got promoted to Wimbledon, you know, Lyle Taylor and Tom Elliott would run the team ragged, and Akinfenwa and Aziz would come on and run the team ragged. So you've got to have the ability to be able to do that at any point.
That suggests then you will see some movement relatively quickly, because as you said, the schedule of the next 3 weeks, the next 3 Tuesdays, they're all double game weeks.
And listen, if it was up to me, if I could find the right players who would really take us forward, they'd have been in on Monday. It's not that easy. You know, you can't just rush and go, oh, let's just go and bring someone in. We're looking, we're analysing, we're making sure that it's whoever comes in is the right type, wants to be here for the right reason, and is in the right position, and is going to bring something different to the squad that will help us. That can't happen overnight. It's very, very difficult to do that overnight.
And is it the same then with players leaving? You've had to make quick, snap decisions on certain players?
I think, listen, you say snap. I know the players, I know the level, I know who's in the squad. I've watched them all week. So they're conversations that have to be had. I wanted to give it all week so that I could have a look at them in fitness sessions, see where they are, have a look at them in proper competitive. You know, Tuesday can be as competitive as you want. Thursday might be a bit more match prep. Friday's going to be lighter, and we're going to be focusing on all the details for the game tomorrow. So, you know, there's limited time within there, but as from next week going on, we've got 2 weeks where training is going to be less and less because we're going to be recovering between the games. So, yes, I've got to make quicker decisions. Yes, I've got to look at these boys and make sure, for their sakes, not just for me balancing off the squad, that I'm honest and have conversations with them. If I think that if they want to play football, we might need to work together to make that happen somewhere else. I'll have them conversations. Obviously, I need to have them conversations, because if I turn around and say I could do with 2 or 3 to balance the squad off, you can't have 35, 37, 39, 40 players. It's ridiculous.
And have you already got players coming to you saying I want to play football? Or that's maybe why they weren't considered last week?
Yeah, absolutely. Where do you see me? Where do you see me in your stuff? Of course, and I welcome that. You know, I think a lot of people say, I'd hate to be a manager, I'd hate to leave people. Of course it is. I can only ever keep 11 people happy. And I might have a squad of 28, 30. So if I can only keep 11 happy, there's 19 people who don't like me every week. And that's not a nice place to be in. But I think as a manager, if whatever you do is with empathy, if whatever you do's got an authentic side to it, if you look at it and you work with these people, it's football. They know it, you know it, and you just say, look, how can we work it so that it's the best for you as well as us?
The players then we saw in your squad last week, is there anyone who's not available in that squad because of injury?
The only one that was a concern was Bats. Obviously, but he's trained, so you know, we're hoping Bats now will be all right. He got a nasty knock. I'm just trying to think. Jack Stott felt he rolled his ankle in training yesterday, so he's a doubt. But I think other than that, I think we're okay. Obviously, people like Callum Harriott and Alex Woodyard are on their recovery process, so when do I think they've got enough into their legs to start playing a part in the squad? That could happen very soon as well, so that'll be a welcome addition.
And that's for someone like Callum Harriott, very skillful, has played at a much higher level than this, but his injury record shows that you do have to be careful with him.
Of course, and that's where, you know, again, with stuff we've been working on, I said, on the training ground, is trying to put in facilities and processes in place where we will limit, you know, we'll have the ability to limit muscle injuries, have the ability to put more players on the pitch. I think if you invest in the infrastructure at the bottom to enable you, you know, sports science, proper sports science, GPS equipment, live data, equipment that can test for fatigue post-match, if we've got all these sorts of tools and we use them wisely, we're going to massively be able to limit. And if you limit it, you can put, hopefully, more players on the pitch.
I see the club just advertised as well for a couple of backroom roles, haven't they?
Got to work, haven't we?
Well, does that affect anyone that was who's already helping? Because I think like Paddy McLaughlin, I know, is involved in the sports science team at the minute. Do either of those roles impact on what he's been doing?
Well, they will impact because he can become a player again. And for Paddy at the moment, he's helping out. It's not what he wants to be. He doesn't want to be dual rolled. He doesn't want to be on my staff group where I'm having staff meetings every morning at 8:15 and loads of conversations going. He's a player, and he'd be part of a staff conversation. It's not right. He needs to focus on doing the best he can to be on the pitch. We need to get people in full time who, if we get new GPS equipment and live data, who can run that data, who can start to progress the fitness levels of the players and work with the sports science and medicine team. It has to be a big approach to get everything right. So yeah, of course, and then data analysis. We want to enhance our recruitment. We want to make sure, I'm keen to put a model together where any data that's collected on players we've got into an algorithm, so we can start seeing behind the scenes what players, and then we can use our eyes with our data. If you put eyes, data, the way you want to play, the types you want in certain positions, and you start making all of that fit, then you do your homework on the character and stuff like that, the chances are you're going to make more good signings than bad. Even Alex Ferguson made 1 or 2 bad ones, but at least we can say that process eliminates bad signings.
Talk about your captain last week, Ryan Fallowfield. I think that probably surprised quite a lot of people who have not seen him captain York before. I don't think he captained at Harrogate up there. Josh Falkingham at Harrogate. Lots of people thought you'd bring him Callum out and give him the captain's armband. What was the thinking behind making Ryan the captain? I
just wanted to make sure everyone who thought Callum out was going to be got it wrong. No, listen, Callum...
Well, was there a little bit of that? Say, look, he's not going to be one of my favourites just because I had him before?
No, not at all. You look at... Callum's just walked into the club. Ryan's been at the club before. I played against Ryan's teams. He's got the respect of the players. I think he's a very good player. I looked at Ryan at the moment. He's my main right back. We've got injuries in that position. I think he's a man, and I think the players respect him. So he got the armband for that reason. Having been around the place, I like to have centre halves normally having the armband, or defenders, or possibly midfielders. But then having seen Lenny John Lewis around the training ground, I realised why he was made captain. He's a leader, the lads respect him, great character, wants to run the place right, wants to educate people. Every club wants someone like that around the place. So for me, I've got no reason why I would want to change Lenny as the club captain, because everything he's shown me is what I would want from that role.
So Lenny stays as club captain. Does Ryan then stay as the on-field captain on the day of the match?
No, Lenny would be the captain if Lenny starts tomorrow. If Lenny's not starting, Ryan will be the captain if he starts. And if them two are both unavailable, then I'll have to have a think about the next one. But it is about, you've got to look about the respect, and sometimes someone like Callum Howe, when I had him at Solihull, he would play like a captain when he didn't have the armband. Giving him the armband doesn't necessarily enhance his game. He plays like it when he hasn't got it. So sometimes you go, I'm not going to put the pressure on you to wear the armband because I know you'll play like a captain without it. So then you can have 3 captains on the bench.
If you do play John Lewis tomorrow, free from suspension now, that sort of completely changes York City, doesn't it? Because I think his attributes are attributes that maybe many other players in this squad don't have.
Yeah, physically, he's very, very strong. He's a good player. You've got to have everything at this level. Teams can beat you up. You've got to be able to stand up to them balls in your box, like Boreham Wood would have done last week. Teams can try and outrun you. You've got to be fit. We've got to make sure we're fitter than we have been. We've got to make sure we periodise our fitness so that we finish the season strong. Every time I've ever had a team from the start of the season, you periodise it so that by the end of the season, you're the fittest team. You'll come into a crescendo with 10 or 15 games to go, because that's when everything's won and lost. So we've got to build that, we've got to get that right. And then, we've got to have a playing style and a way of doing things that causes teams problems. And we're working on them all. And Lenny and Dips and, all the players that have been in and around at the moment are going to be crucial to that.
Can you see why the football club spent so much money on Dips after just 1 week?
Yeah, again, needs loads of work, and again, I go back, even with Dips, I want to get him fitter, I want to get him stronger so that he can, I expect my forwards to go hard, and that's where I talked about the imbalance in the squad. I'd love to turn around to my 2 centre forwards and say, run yourself until you can't run anymore, and then on 65 minutes I'm going to bring these 2 on, and they're going to run even harder than you just have. That, for me, is how I like to work, and then they know that that's their role on the team on that day. You know, if you haven't got anyone on the bench and they're trying to save themselves, that's not ideal, but we'll get there.
Yes, I think he's the only player that started all 8 games so far, because there really isn't any other option.
No, exactly. And like I said, we're in balance. You know, we've got 9 centre midfielders and we've got 7 wingers and we've got 2 centre halves and 2 centre forwards. So there's loads we need to do. Rome wasn't built in a day, and at the moment we've got a really tough run of games coming up, and I've just got to try and build some momentum and some performances that give us a chance of picking up points.
Didn't have a goalkeeper on the bench either last week. Was that just a one-off? Is that how you see yourself moving forward, especially with such a big squad?
Yeah, I blame the National League for this. I just think it's absolutely preposterous to have 5 subs. You know, at the top level, they've got whatever it is, 5 from 8, 5 from. I mean, the game's moved on. You know, now they're adding extra time on, and games are going into 100 minutes, and we're only allowed 3 subs from 5. It's criminal. Like, it's so bad. Even if in the summer, they've never asked any managers, they just do it because, you know, whoever it is, whether it's chairman or whatever, they don't want that extra sub, they don't want to carry a bigger squad. Even if they said 5 plus a goalie, make a huge difference. Because when the game comes, and the game put you in a manager's shoes, when the game comes round, I'd like to have 2 centre forwards on the bench. I'd like to have at least 1 winger who might be able to, you know, be something different to what we have. I need a centre midfielder on the bench. So already I'm up to 4. I need cover at centre half or fullback. Already I'm up to 5, and I haven't even got to the goalie yet.
Their argument, I presume, would probably be that, it might be a bit redundant now because the level across the board in the National League is pretty strong now. They would say that would benefit the bigger clubs, those with more money, those who've got the bigger squads, rather than some of the clubs who only take on very small squads because they can't afford more players.
Brilliant. So if I sit here now and ask for an 18-man squad, that's a good argument. If I sit here and say, could you not have the 5 subs you currently have and let everyone add a goalie as a 6th, you telling me you have to carry a bigger squad to be able to do that? Of course you don't.
You could put youth team goalie on there.
Of course you could. It's up to you. At least but that 1 position's for a goalie, and it's up to you. And if you decide not to, you just have the 5 subs. If you decide to have a second goalie or a youth team goalie that you like, you have him on the bench. But the alternative is something happens, a goalie gets injured, the game becomes a farce because I've had to take that gamble. And I am willing to take that gamble. It might come in for criticism, and there might come a time when the goalie gets sent off, or the goalie, I've had it at Notts County, Michael Doyle had to go in goal, or there might come a time where the keeper gets injured and you go, oh, well, that's backfired. You know, I'm trying to look at the bigger picture of the one time that might happen compared to what I might need on the bench the 45 other games this season.
Don't particularly like talking about referees, especially before games, but when you see the referee appointments, and I don't know if you've seen the stats this week, but the referee we've got here tomorrow has refereed 6 games this season, 44 yellows and 5 reds in those 6 games.
Right.
Do you then have to have a word with your players and say, because York City's record this season, picking yellow cards, would be pretty poor, I would have thought, looking at the rest of the table. Do you have to have a word with them and say, you've got to be extra clean today, you've got to be extra careful, because this ref is quite happy to get his cards out?
Well, I'd like to think, and again, I've had a lot of behind-the-scenes run-ins with the Referees Association, the PGMOL, whatever it is. I've had lots of run-ins where I've asked for feedback, I've not received it, you know, and I've had refs come out and sit with me at the training ground. I'd like to think if that referee has been card happy and got a lot of things wrong and hasn't managed his games right, that reports would have been put in about him, and I'd like to think that he would have been spoken to by an educating referee to show him what he's doing wrong, and therefore he shouldn't be turning up tomorrow in the same place that he's been for 4, 5, 6 games prior. I'd like to think that's going to happen. Maybe that's wishful thinking, but I'd like to think it is. If I say to my lads, don't go out and get any yellow cards, be careful on your tackling, blah, 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 we could end up being out there and not laying a glove on them. So there's a balance. You've got to see how the game goes and how the ref manages the game. But I'd like to think the Referees Association will be getting hold of him and making sure he's doing things right.
Mark White, the Dorking manager, sort of jokingly said, I do more research on the referees than I do on the opposition these days.
Yeah, well, Mark's a good friend of mine, and Mark's, he's a special guy, Mike. I love him, and I think he's slightly different to me. I try and stay a lot calmer on the bench when it comes to that. I try and control things I can control, and I cannot control if the referee's decided he's having a bad day.
Southend, I think they deserve so much credit, don't they? Kevin Marr, his squad, everything they've gone through, not being able to bring a player in 18 months, and to keep churning out the results that they do is quite astonishing.
It is, and a massive credit to Kevin and his team for what they've been through. I mean, I've sat in their office with them talking about it, and you could write a book about it, but they've got really good players. And you know, he's kept that group, somehow kept that group together. I mean, I go through every player in that team, and there's 3 or 4 at least that I would pay money for. And that's the truth of it. I would go out and say, go and spend money getting, you know, I'm not going to mention them because it's...
I think you're tried.
Yeah, I'm not going to mention them because it's not fair for me to do, but they've got a really good system of play. They've got real togetherness because of what they've been through, and we've obviously had a load of mismatch, loads of players coming in that hasn't created that. So they're well in advance. So all their problems are well in advance of us. It seems strange to say that given, you know, the backing this club's had and the amount they've had to be bringing in. But they're really, really, really good team. I do all my homework on the oppositions. I look at the data. They should be top of the league on expected points based on their performances this season. So we should be playing top of the league. And instead, because of what's happened to them, they're down the bottom. So for me, this is a super, super tough game. I know we've got loads coming up, but just focusing on this one game, I've spent ages watching them, and I go through every one of their players and go, I like him, he does that role great, he does, and the way they work and they function and their cohesion is really, really good. If we come out tomorrow with a really positive result, the boys would have played exceptionally well to get it because they're so good.
How important is it that you do get this first win? If not tomorrow on Tuesday night, but you need to get it as soon as possible, because I know you're a new manager coming in, but I presume it gets harder to get through to the players if their confidence keeps being hit by bad results and bad performances.
Absolutely, and if I look at potentially the first 7 fixtures York City have compared to the next 7, they've had the run that they should have got 2 or 3 wins in, and they've now got a run where they'll do well to get 2 or 3 wins in. So there's no doubting it's a massive challenge. Of course, I want the win. Of course I want it. A, for myself, like that, you know, to say, right, that's one on the board. B, for the fans to say thank God for that, and then they can have a bit more belief in me as a manager. And C, for the players, because of the lift it will give them, especially with a run of games where we're going Saturday, Tuesday. You know, that momentum can carry on into Tuesday and so on and so forth. I can't guarantee it because we're playing against a team probably at the moment in a better place than us. So what I can guarantee is that I've worked 4 days this week on every element we needed: fitness, recovery, strategy, patterns, passing, how we're going to implement our philosophy onto the game, and particularly how we're going to work without the ball, because if we don't, they'll cut through us like a knife through butter. We've tried to cover everything: throw-ins, corners, set pieces, long throw, you name it. Every base we could, we've covered. Hopefully the boys will go across the line tomorrow full of beans and at least put in a performance. What will happen with the result? Who knows?
Good luck.
And looking towards the game with Southend, you've got quite a strong relationship with them that you touched on earlier. Could you sort of go into it a little bit with more detail?
As in the club, strong relationship? Yeah, I know that Matt has tried to help Southend in their difficult situation, so I know that there's a really good bond between Matt and Southend based on that. I've got a very strong bond with Kevin. We get on really, really well, and his staff. They're great guys. Always great to have a beer pre and post game with them. So they're good people. It's sad to see a good club in the situation it's in, but the job that Kevin and his staff and players are doing is pretty remarkable.
And it was sort of the plaque coming out on the game tomorrow. That's quite a strong relationship between the two of you. Could you sort of talk to me a bit about why you think it's so important that you guys are doing this together?
I just think that, you know, Matt's come in to this football club, and, you know, Matt could have gone on, and his family could have probably gone and bought 1 or 2 football clubs if they wanted. That they like look at. Matt's come in and made a huge difference to York, as in uplifted it, and you know, going forward there's loads to that. I think Southend at the moment are having such a bad time with the situation they're in, but also where the future lies. So I think any football club that can support another football club and actually, you know, in the same league, particularly fighting for the same sort of positions, to be able to just say, we're behind you, we're with you in this tough time, I think that's massive in football, and I think Matt's carried that brilliantly.
And it sort of said on the article that I read that you guys posted, you've not really said anything about how this plaque's going to be presented. Can you have any hints?
I haven't got involved in too much of that side of things. That's for the media and the commercial team, and they'll know a little bit more about that than me. I'll just try to focus on the game.
And what are you excited about with this game? You've got a strong relationship. Do you think there's going to be any after parts of the game where you're all sort of just friends and something like that?
Certainly not between 3 o'clock and 5 o'clock. You're there to win a game of football. After the game, management team will always be invited into our office for a beer and a chat. But during the game, it's all about the points. They're on a decent roll and they're a good team playing well. We're finding ourselves, and we've got to try and build some momentum, or it's going to be a long season.
And so this is only your second game leading the team. What impression are you hoping to leave on the fans as well as the players that you're now leading?
I think the impression on the players hopefully has already been there, because they've been with me every day now for sort of 9-10 days. I think they're already, I hope, enjoying the way we're trying to play, enjoying what we're trying to do, understanding it, the detail we're going into. When they cross that white line, I like to think tomorrow they go, we know exactly what we're doing today. Now whether they can carry out the plan is different, but I feel like they feel like they're a team, and a well-drilled team, rather than maybe being a new group of players thrown in who don't quite know each other so well. So that, from my point of view, I feel like the players, that's been a really good response. From the fans, again, I've got to win games of football, and that's probably, if you ask the fans, they'll say that's all we worry about at the moment. From my point of view, I have to start by putting some sort of performance together that gives me a chance to win games of football, but we are working incredibly hard to make everything right on the pitch, off the pitch, to put us in a position where we can grow and become a really, really good football club that's progressive.
You sort of took all my good questions, but is there anything else that you wanted to add?
No, just again, the fans were incredible last week, really got behind us in difficult circumstances. Our next run of games are extremely tough, and we're going to need them more than ever. So let's stick together, let's get through this together, and hopefully we can create good times.
Thank you.